Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we are going to be casting our ever critical eye over another bolt action 3rd edition unit. And this time we are going to be deep diving one of my favourite oddball tanks of the war, the M3 Lee. With its tall profile and strange sponson gun, the Lee is certainly an interesting design for a vehicle. But how does it hold up on the tabletop? Is it any good, or should it be left at home? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's mount up, roll out, and dive right into this. You there! Are you sick of languishing at home with nothing to do, wanking, eating expensive German biscuits, and just generally wasting your life? Well, I have got the solution for you. Warlord Games is now the proud sponsor of the Mordian Glory channel, and they have given me an affiliate link. By clicking on that link down in the description below, you'll be able to get yourself some fantastic World War II bolt action miniatures. These finely detailed models are the perfect way of finding yourself a hobby that will finally get you out of the masturbatorum.
I'll make that deal. How about you? You make that deal?
I make that deal.
Damn good deal.
So what are you waiting for? Click on the affiliate link down below, support the channel, and get off the sofa. As is tradition, we're going to start off this video with a general overview of the M3 Lee and its role in your army on the tabletop. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty details of the different variants of the Lee and their pros and cons. And at the end, we're going to give the Lee a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I'm going to tell you what my favorite variant is. So with all of that said, let's get started. So the first thing to mention, and it's kind of obvious, but the M3 Lee is a tank. And so its role in your army is going to be that of a primary damage dealer. This thing isn't necessarily going to be taking and holding objectives. After all, it's a vehicle. So at best, it can contest objectives, but it is going to be able to lay down a pretty serious amount of firepower. Now, one of the biggest advantages of the M3 Lee in comparison to other medium tanks is that it is packing a lot of heat in comparison to its contemporaries. Your typical medium tank in this game is going to consist of something which is going to be armor 9 with a medium AT gun and probably a coaxial machine gun and a hull-mounted machine gun as well. The M3 Lee, on the other hand, packs in a whole extra AT gun. You still get that medium AT, you still get that medium machine gun, you still get that coaxial MMG, but it's also going to throw on a light anti-tank gun as well. Now, it might only be a light anti-tank gun, but it's still something your opponent is going to have to respect. Bear in mind that in bolt action, a lot of vehicles are only going to be throwing down maybe 5 or 6 of their anti-tank gun shots a game. The Lee is going to be firing double that. Double the shots means double the opportunities to get those hits, to get those pens, to get pins on that mean something, and also to do damage. Now, of course, you do have to pay for that extra firepower, and so in comparison to most medium tanks, which are between 205 and 235 points, the M3 Lee starts off at 235 points and gets more expensive with different variants. However, there is another way of looking at this. The Lee can do double duty and therefore can save you points. I mean, if you're someone that was going to be taking a Sherman and a Stuart, you could just take a Lee. Sure, you're going to miss out on one coax and one extra medium machine gun, but in terms of AT coverage, that Lee is going to do the job of that Sherman, it's going to do the job of that Stuart, and it's probably going to save you money in the long term. Of course, it is going to be one less dice, so there are trade-offs to all of these things, but it's just an angle to consider. Now, we have talked a lot about tabletop factors, but let's zoom out for a moment and look at real-life logistics. The Lee is a very modern kit. In fact, it recently got released in plastic by Warlord Games. It went from being a resin model, and a lot of people aren't a fan of resin models, to being a plastic model. Not only did that bring its money costs down, but it also made the quality of the kit much, much better. And I think that is a real factor. if you're looking for one of those sweet, sweet late generation Warlord kits, and you're looking for a tank which is going to be striking on the battlefield, and looking for one that is going to pack a punch but not impact your wallet too badly, the Lee might be a good option for you. But that just about covers the general principles of the Lee. But now we need to get into the different variants, because there are 4 different kinds of M3 Lee that you can include in your force. So the first one is just the standard M3 Lee. Principal service 1941 to 1943, numbers manufactured an absolute buttload. It is important to note that this vehicle can be featured in both the early and mid-war. Now, most people don't worry too much about time periods, but if you are someone who is playing in an early war campaign, turning up with a goddamn Lee would be like turning up with a Baneblade in Warhammer 40k. It's a big tank for an early war period, when a lot of people are going to be using like Panzer 1s and Panzer 2s, when there could be a bunch of one-man turret French tanks trundling around the place. You're there slapping down a big old Lee, and that is going to be a big old statement. But let's get to the points values. 188 points in experience or 235 points regular. I would recommend you do take the Lee as regular. It's not a howitzer armed tank, and so you don't really want the inbuilt -1 to hit from being inexperienced. And even when taken as an experience, it is relatively expensive in comparison to like a cheap infantry squad or something. So you want to make sure it's going to obey orders, so you want that better leadership. As for its weapons, it comes with the hull-mounted medium anti-tank gun covering the front and right arcs. So that is a little bit limited. It's not in the turret, it's going to be on the side, but to be honest, most of the time when you're engaging in firefights, you do want, especially with other tanks, you do want your front armor to be facing on, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Now, the turret-mounted light anti-tank gun does have 360-degree line of sight, and so that is less constrained than the medium AT. And you've also got a coaxial MMG, and you have got another MMG with a 360-degree arc of fire. Now, that's actually a pretty big deal, because most of the time, the hull-mounted MMGs that other vehicles get, they're stuck on that front arc. But this is 360 degree. Now, bear in mind that you can split fire with your tank's inbolt action. Being able to put the medium AT and the light AT one way and then just spaff your machine gun in a completely different direction does actually open up some interesting tactical opportunities. Now, despite the fact that it is an early war tank, it is a full-blown medium tank, and that is actually quite a rare thing. One of the greatest advantages of the Matilda 2 is the fact that it's a medium tank in an early war period, which can make it surprisingly durable. But the advantage that the Lee has over the Matilda is the fact that it can still compete into the later war, with the medium and later war, with the fact that it has a medium anti-tank gun. Speaking of that medium AT, it comes with improved HE right away in the early war. Very nice. Very, very nice indeed. Improved HE is one of the better rules, one of the best rules, I would say, that Allied armies tend to get access to over the Germans. And straight away, you're going to be able to sling out 2-inch templates and have double machine gun if you're looking for anti-infantry duty. We've talked a lot about the Lee's potential at being able to bully other tanks, but being able to spaff out that much anti-infantry, again, in the early war is very, very beneficial. However, it's not all good news. The Lee does easily catch fire, meaning that it takes an additional D3 pin markers when you set the tank on fire on the vehicle damage table, and you do get an extra +1 to pen when hitting the side or rear because of the fact that it is vulnerable. That's to represent its riveted construction. Truthfully, vulnerable is not such a big deal. You can essentially avoid that rule with good play. If you just keep your front armor on the enemy, use creative and good use of terrain, you will be able to make sure that you play around vulnerable. But easy catches fire is a big debuff. It essentially means that if you catch fire more often than not, you're probably going to lose the tank on the field morale, unless you're very lucky. But having said all that, In a funny sort of way, these debuffs are actually a bit of a buff because they have significantly reduced the cost of the Lee. If we have a look at some of the other variants, you can see we've got 250 points, 255 points. I mean, 240 is not too bad. But the point is, this is the cheapest Lee variant. Now, 235 points put this thing in line with some of the T-3485s, some of the Panzer IVs. It puts it in line essentially with other medium tanks. So if you're willing to take a bit of a gamble and you're more interested in damage output than durability, going for the early Lee could be a very, very good idea. Sure, it's a gamble, but maybe you roll those dice. Moving on to the next variant, and to be honest, all of these will be fairly quick because the weapons of the Lee don't really change. It's more how many debuff rules did they get rid of. So the M3A1 Lee, you can see we have gone up to 250 points now, so a little pricey, but we only have easily catches fire. Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you. That's not good enough for me. Because vulnerable is the one you can play around. Easily catches fire is the one that could completely bugger you. Now, if this is 250 points and we got rid of easily catches fire and kept vulnerable, I'd probably pay that. But 250 points to still keep what is arguably the biggest debuff on the vehicle? No. I would avoid the M3A1 Lee. Too expensive and not a big enough improvement. Now, here's the thing. If you are going to go for the M3A1, you might as well go for the M3A3. This is because for just 5 points more, you lose easily catches fire. In fact, the M3A3 Lee doesn't have any debuffs as part of its special rules. It just has the improved HE for the medium anti-tank gun. If you're the kind of person that's a bit more risk averse, the M3A3 is probably for you. It's very much you're paying for that peace of mind. But the issue you're going to have is it is expensive. At this point, we're out of the realms of medium tank costs, and we're starting to get into some of the lower end of heavy tank cost. I mean, I think it's about 250-ish. It might be about 275, but it's not far off. It's getting close to a Churchill tank for the Brits. Now, sure, the Churchill's just got a medium AT gun and a medium machine gun and a coaxial MMG, but it's getting into heavy tank territory. But for some players, the idea of just getting rid of all of the debuffs and just having a tank which only has good things about it is worth every penny. But me personally, I would go for the M3A5 Lee, because that is 240 points regular. You can actually take it as veteran if you want to, but I would stay at 240 points right here. You get the medium AT gun, you get the turret mounted light and tank gun, you get the coaxial MMG, you get the MMG with 360-degree arc of fire, you get the 9+, you get the fact that it's still a medium war tank, you get the improved HG, but most importantly, you get rid of easily catches fire and you just have vulnerable. And as we said before, vulnerable is something you can play around. Vulnerable is something that, with a bit of terrain covering your flanks, keeping your front armor to the enemy, you may never ever actually encounter. So for just 5 points over the standard Lee, you get rid of the biggest debuff. And that is phenomenal. That is so good. In fact, the only advantage the standard Lee has over the A5 is the fact it's an early war tank. But for most people, they don't even look at whether it's early, mid, or late war. The average action player on the street just plays the models that they like against their mates. They don't really worry too much about the time period. And so as a result, the M3A5 Lee is the tank for me. However, we can't talk about the Lee without touching upon what is arguably its greatest rival within the army book, the M4 Sherman. Because for a lot of players, it is going to be a decision between going for the Lee or going for the Sherman. Now, the Sherman as standard is 205 points. It has a medium AT gun, a coaxial MMG, and a forward-facing MMG. And also it does come with easily catches fire, but you can cancel that out for a measly 5 points. So your standard Sherman is going to come in really about 210 points. It still gets the improved HE. And when comparing it to the Lee A5, you're looking at a 30-point difference. And really, when you boil it all down, you're spending 30 points on that light anti-tank gun. And the question that players will have to ask themselves is that light anti-tank gun worth it? Now, some people will say straight away, yes. And some people will straight away say no. Personally, for me, it's going to come down to this. What else is in your list? If you are struggling for anti-tank and you are looking for ways to cram it into your list, a Lee might be a very good way of doing it. Because even though light anti-tank guns aren't all that expensive, 30 points is a good deal for one. And you've got to take into account you will have it on a mobile platform. And you've got to take into account you won't be having to pay an officer tax to unlock a artillery platoon to get it. So the M3 Lee can help you get a bit more anti-tank in your army if you need to essentially avoid or you're not able to get an extra platoon in there. But if you already have sufficient anti-tank in your army, if you don't need that light anti-tank gun, I think you would probably end up going for a Sherman. Although there's always one last factor to take into account. The rule of cool. Shermans. Everyone has a Sherman. Everyone and their mum has a Sherman. Who? Farmers. Who else? Farmers' mums. On a serious note, the Lee does have a certain drip. It does have a certain rule of cool factor. And I don't think that is something that should be completely dismissed. You put a Sherman down the table, another day, another dollar. You whack a Lee down the table. All right. Now we're cooking on gas. In summary, the M3 Lee is not a bad tank at all. Not only can you get one for a pretty reasonable price point, but you can also get a bit of extra firepower on a standard medium tank. It's got a few tricks up its sleeve, like that 360-degree machine gun as well. But it does have things like vulnerable and easily catches fire. And you have to start paying quite a lot if you want to get rid of those. If you want to get rid of both especially. And at the end of the day, the big question is, how much do you value that light AT? And for a lot of players, I think they'd probably end up going for the Sherman. It's cheaper, and it does most of what the Lee does. However, you can make all of the well-reasoned arguments that you want. You can tell me that the Sherman is better, but the Lee wins the rule of cool. And at the end of the day, that probably counts for the most. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Are you Team Lee or are you Team Sherman? Or are you a completely different team and you've got another medium tank that you think is best for the Americans? If you've got any tanks from other factions and nations that you want me to review as part of these videos, then please let me know down in the comment section, and if I can, I'll take a look. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Redfield, 32, Jurgens, Miasma, Try Again, Bragg, R.J., Scorpion, Bonbon Vert, Lord Pryor, Nicholas Walsh, John Stubbs, Guardian, Varney, Sword, Fish Trombone, Picklock the Forged. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.